Okay, so good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Debate Club. So, this is a platform that was made with the aim of improving public discourse in India. And we conduct weekly debates and discussions on various different topics. And the topic for this week is capitalism is the best economic model we have. Agree or disagree? So, before we even get into the debate, I'd like to give you guys some context on the same. So, this motion asks us a question that sits at the heart of modern politics, economics, and public policy. That is capitalism the best economic model available to humanity? So, capitalism is a dominant economic system of our age, which is built on private ownership, market competition, profit incentives, and voluntary exchange. Since the end of the Cold War, most countries have moved towards some version of a market economy, making capitalism the foundation of the modern global order. So, the supporters of capitalism often argue that no other system has generated prosperity on a comparable scale, excuse me, um, on a comparable scale when you take capitalism as the thing that you're comparing other models against. So, since 1990, we see that global economic poverty has fallen dramatically. Millions have entered the middle class, and innovations ranging from smartphones to life saving medicines have emerged largely through competitive markets. Capitalism's flexibility, ability to coordinate complex economies, and capacity for self correction make it humanity's most successful economic model, according to its supporters. Now, like in all cases, where there are supporters of a certain thing, there will also be critics. So, critics of capitalism contend that these achievements come with significant costs. For example, rising inequality, financial crises, environmental degradation, and the concentration of wealth and power have led many to question whether capitalism serves society as a whole. Critics argue that markets often fail to account for public goods, social welfare, and long term sustainability, and that alternative models may produce fairer outcomes. Now, here I think the motion of the debate becomes more complex when we look at a few real life examples. For example, we see Nordic countries combine market economies with extensive welfare systems and consistently rank among the happiest and most developed nations in the world. India itself also has a mixed economy. China has lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty through a model that blends markets with strong state intervention. Meanwhile, countries like the US showcase both strengths and weaknesses of a core market oriented approach. So, with that context in place, I will now declare the floor open for debate, and anybody who would like to speak will have to raise their hands and they will be given a chance to speak in that order. 1 hour down the line roughly, we will have a rebuttal session. So, if you have any counters for any statements that other speakers are making, I suggest having a notepad in hand, note them down, and during the rebuttal session, you can counter them. So, anybody who likes to speak, please raise your hand. Okay, so I'd like to go first and just add a little bit of more nuance or add questions that will help you understand what your stance is, right? So let's start here, right? Are you somebody who agrees that capitalism has improved the standards of human living overall, or are you somebody who disagrees? And if capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any other system, what exactly does a better alternative look like? And if you were given a choice, would you rather live in a country like North Korea, Soviet Russia, modern day Sweden, or modern day United States? So, those are a few things I'd like you guys to ask yourselves before choosing a stance or making your opening statements. Yes, please, Puneet.
Hello everyone. Like you said, whole socialism versus capitalism is also a political debate, economic debate, and also it affects all our lives, all aspects of our life. So first, I will start with some like uh, small points, and then I will also ask questions because I am also more curious to know. Firstly, we have seen that yes, capitalism has increased prosperity in many parts of the country, many countries of the world. It is true, but it is also true that inequality has increased, especially in India, from 40% to 58%, like 10% holding 48% of the wealth, and now that has increased. The wealth concentration has increased. And then the second thing is about socialism is Hayek's knowledge problem, which means that suppose there is a central planner, so how will they, process all the information required for deciding how much to produce, who will produce, and whom to supply? That will not be possible in a big country like India, not even like country like Soviet Union. It was not possible. They tried it. It led to surplus, shortage, and wastage of resources. Prices are market signals that give, like, suppose the price increases, it signals that the resource is scarce, less available. And if price decreases, it is wide available. So prices act as signals, uh, incentivizing individuals to use the resource according to its availability. If oil prices of oil increase, people will naturally travel less, but something like this may not be possible in a socially planned economy where not all the information, like country is so big, all the information collecting it, local information, local context, and then a central planner deciding all of this may not be practically possible. IX research shows this. But then let's look at capitalism as well. Like what do I say? Yes, a plastic manufacturer produces plastics, sells it. The market has demand, and he supplies that. The price signals what he should produce. But what about the environment? What about the poor tribal communities who live beside that factory? The market prices don't consider that negative external harm, environmental harm into the picture, into the prices. So what do we do there? That is a negative of capitalism. And even if a resource is very abundantly available, take paper. How much does it cost? 1 rupee. So even like many people will be like, let's use 100 paper. But paper is a natural, like, extracted from trees. So we are cutting more trees, natural resources, and trees are so crucial for sustaining our life on this planet. But paper is so cheap, right? We can have more. So it also incentivizes wasteful consumption of resources, which are cheap, but they are very crucial for environment and they may go extinct in the near future. And wait a second. Yes, now we have Nordic alternatives as well. The Nordic economies are not like US capitalists nor like North Korea socialism. They are a mix. Like they have welfare programs. Yes, the negative is high taxes, but the government has kept the high taxes to ensure that everybody has a basic social safety net. And so another thing has been said is that capitalism delivers gains in literacy rate, life expectancy, decrease in mortality rates. The question is, I want to ask to anybody, has capitalism really delivered this, or is it a blend of government regulation and capitalism? And the fourth thing is technology. We all agree that innovation is important. New technologies are developing, but it is also true, it is important to regulate them. If we don't regulate technologies like AI, biotechnology, quantum computing, then we don't know how much harm it may cause to the society in general. So it is important. Regulation is important. There is no country that is pure capitalist. Even the US has regulations in place. And then, like the solution that comes to other side about paper, about carbon footprint is carbon pricing, ESG, B Corp. B Corp, I think, is some certificate that is provided to companies that have low footprint, if I'm correct. So capitalism, some say, is a more flexible system that it can take into account externalities, the negative environmental harms by carbon pricing and all that. So that is something that supporters argue. And the critics say that climate change is a fundamental market failure where externalities of fossil fuels are not reflected in the prices. And second thing that another thing said about capitalism is it is prone to crisis and highly unstable, like the 2008-9 bank crisis of the US, the 2012 EU cross zone crisis, eurozone crisis. And then the most important thing I like to address is the class conflict. Can I go over a second because this is very important? Like I think this is the question.
You can take 10 seconds extra, no problem, but no more than that.
Okay, so I was saying that do fruits of capitalism flow disproportionately to capital owners? Like capital owners, they use workers. Workers don't have control over what they produce. The question always comes is workers want a work-life balance and higher pay, whereas companies want to cut cost. So there is always a class conflict. How do we solve this class conflict is a question. Okay, yes, I am done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Puneet. I will now let Aditya go ahead.
Hello, people. So it's actually my first time in this place. So, just a quick question. So, I'm supposed to defend or attack the key questions for the debate. Is that how it's
Aditya,
supposed to be?
so you can actually either choose a stance, or if you're somebody who's somewhere in between, or if you're somebody who feels neutrally about this topic, you can also go about taking that approach. This is more of like a proper discourse that we're having than any strict formal debate.
Okay, cool. Okay. So I think I'm for capitalism. And so there could be a couple of things. So capitalism is honestly the best way to allocate resources because it's only going to allocate resources when there would be some amount of profit available. And the profit's only available when you are the best option in the market. So, using capitalism, the progress of the economy and like society in general, technology, all of that will be much more than, let's say, communism. As and we have an example for that also, looking at the U.S. and the Soviet Union from before, right? Um, and so it's not just capitalism. We can't just look at capitalism versus no capitalism. We have to look at capitalism with how efficient the government might be, or like how you could say benevolent the government might be. So, um, so you can imagine like a quadrant system, a four quadrant system in which there's capitalism with the benevolent government, a capitalism with which isn't, and the other side of this. And all of these sides actually exist. So maybe some place like the Nordic countries like Norway or something, they actually so they are capitalistic and they also are like more benevolent than some place than maybe you could say India. So India is also kind of capitalistic or mixed, you could say, but there's a lot of inefficiencies and leakages in India, as we all know. And all of this will exist in other non-capitalistic countries also. Like the examples could be China and Russia. China is quite strict, and because of that, it has developed a lot. But maybe other places not so much. Um, and speaking of China, so the main reason China actually, you know, progressed as fast as it was because of combining capitalism with more you could say strictness than India or like other places. And I think that's what's missing. Capitalism would still allocate the best resources, but only if there's no leakages. In India, there was a lot of that because of the process of democracy itself. But in China, that wasn't the case. If China stuck to socialism, then who knows, maybe they would not have climbed to this heights. There would not be any foreign investments in their chip making sectors and all of that, in the electronic sectors. And now coming to carbon pricing. So, like, I don't think this is unique to capitalism at all, because even, I mean, it depends on the mindset of the people. So, suppose there was a communist government, like in the Soviet Union or something, even they would first care more about the I mean, hopefully about the lifestyle of the people, which also wasn't the case, right? But um, so I mean, it depends. So now these days, you do see the public penalizing companies with poor ESG track records um, in the stock market and so on. And stock market is the you could say the best indication of capitalism. So there would be companies called bad companies, quote unquote, such as all companies, and they usually have a penalty attached to them in the stock market. So there is some proof that it's working. It's not like if you had like a communist system, the entire oil industry would just collapse. That's not the case because people still need oil. And yeah, I mean, this was my opening statements, I guess.
Thank you, Aditya. That was a very sophisticated take on the topic. So, what I'm gathering is that the discussion isn't just about whether capitalism exists or whether it is the best economic model we have. The more important question, according to you, maybe what kind of state is sitting above these markets? So, ideally, somebody who supports a capitalist economy would have to pair that market with a strong government that has strong institutions, low corruption rate, effective regulation, and you know, um, kind of has some measures to curb the concentration of power and wealth. So, personally, I think that was a very, very sophisticated take on the topic. Thank you. And I will now let Michael go ahead.
Thank you very much. Very similar to Aditya, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I have a more sort of a diverse look on capitalism versus any other option. And I would say that there are many different alternatives, but I think the most important thing we can look at is to find the balance. Right now, we have a system or kind of a capitalism system that is built to always increase, always produce more. And I don't believe that is going to be sustainable over time. We also have a ramping inflation in most countries. And we also see that when the currency that we use, whatever currency that might be, is no longer tied to a tangible asset, so to speak, something that has a little bit of sustainable value, then we are a little bit lost in the sea of capitalism, I would say. So my argument is that yes, it is not perfect. No, I don't think it's any other system that is very, very much better at this point in time. I am actually looking at the base layer of the system, the currency system, which I think at this point in time is starting to be not so functional due to the economic forces that are at bay and the current inflation and the prevalent massing that everything should be increased always. And I think that mindset is actually going to kill the system eventually. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That is a very, very good point. I think that is one thing we often ignore when talking about capitalism. So, one very strong criticism about capitalism, like Michael mentioned, is that it is structurally growth dependent. For example, if you're just talking about the companies that operate in a system like this are expected to increase profits quarter after quarter. Investors are expecting returns time and time again, and governments often depend on economic growth to maintain employment and tax revenues. It is basically a system that is rewarding expansion more than sufficiency, and long term, it is bound to become somewhat inefficient. So, thank you, Michael, for that. And next up, if anybody wants to speak, same process. Use the reaction button to raise your hand, and I'll let you have a go. I previously saw, I believe, Kritika raise her hand. Kritika, do you have something to add?
Hello, everyone. I think I have a very short take on this. I think I'm not very well read on the topic because currently what I see is that really we should let, uh, I think the most efficient model needs to be put in certain areas. For example, for markets, I think capitalism is the model. For governments, welfare is the model. And honestly, it's a mix and match, and not one model fits all. And honestly, it needs to be like improved over time as and where the context applies. And honestly, we should be improving these models and not stuck in theories of what capitalism is and what. And honestly, in the world right now, that is how it mostly operates. And uh, it's all an evolving process, and we shouldn't be stuck in theories of what capitalism is, what democracy is, what thing. It's all an evolving process, and as and where the country is headed, and as and where as we choose our leaders in market space and in government space and in societal space, that is how all our systems will evolve and all our structures will go on. So I think that is my take. It's not capitalism especially that is good or bad. I think it's an evolving process, and we get a mix and match of different policies in the world right now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Kritika. I see Michael. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open the door for a little bit alternative thinking about this, and let's see if you can follow along. What happens to a system that is very much focused on efficiency, on execution, on profit? And we're also looking at a world that are extensively using machines more and more in certain aspects, business aspect, but also private aspects. We call it AI today. What happens when the system is sort of skewed to the point where efficiency, let's call it less human feelings, are the thing that is rewarded? In my opinion, that leads to a situation where people who are, let's call it more sensitive, more deeper thinking, maybe less efficient on the surface, are pushed away by the system that favors people who are more on the efficient side, less on the humanities side. And I think this is more of a deeper, almost philosophical discussion, but I think it goes in the direction of thinking, where are we going as a human race, as a race on this planet? Are we heading into a world where only the execution and efficiency is the part that is going to be rewarded, which basically means that machines could do most of the job? Or are we heading into a world where we also can be human beings? Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That is actually a great question that we could further discuss on. And personally, I think we see that happening in the job market more and more as we progress with especially AI and related tech. So at first, it was positioned in a way to show, oh, this is a great technology. We are, progressing in terms of how far we can go with what we can do with the technology we have at hand. AI makes workflow easier, but then if you look at it, AI, after having intervened the job market and how workflow progresses in majority of industries, it has only increased workload and just made it faster. That's it. Because in comparison to a human and a machine, or an algorithm at that, we see that algorithms and machines are much faster and we are at the helm of operating it. So we see that what now looks like work has been made easier is actually we just have put more workload on humans using AI because they are more efficient. And that really resonates with me when you said, "Hey, where are we going if a system is just awarding efficiency over deeper levels of thinking and it is awarding a more machine like way of working, a machine like thinking, a machine like operating from human beings rather than just rewarding humans for being humans?" So that is actually a great question. If anybody wants to discuss further on this, you can raise your hand if you have a parallel or even a contrasting opinion on what Michael said. This is your sign to go ahead. Yes, please, Aditya.
I'd actually disagree with the sentiment that AI is pushing deep thinkers away. If anything, I think skills of critical thinking become even more vital. Already, I've heard of people, apparently in much higher up, they tend to become dependent on certain economic models or certain predictions or their assistants for thinking. AI is more like everyone having a personal assistant, but at the same time, AI's logic can be flawed and it's the same logic delivered to everyone. The kinds of people who think more deeply, who check every single source, and who spot errors in fabrications, I think these people may become more desirable. In fact, skills of critical thinking or more soft skills seem to be projected to become much more valuable in the future. I'd say AI more so forces us to look at what is wrong with our systems instead of pushing people, deep thinkers away. Um, I'm not well read enough to give a very appropriate example in finance or so on, but I can say from personal experience with the education system, lots of teachers and lots of students have as well have had to really reconsider how they teach and how they test students, and to better evaluate how a student is learning and thinking. So over here, we don't see that the more intelligent students in a class are not being rewarded. It's more like the entire system just needs to be reevaluated, since even kids who don't understand are still passing the class without developing any of the skills. But yeah, I just my main point, so as a summary, is I don't think AI is necessarily a threat because it's breaking the system. It's not pushing away deep thinkers. It's just forcing us to better consider and address the more philosophical question of where we're heading as a society and reevaluate what our systems are actually doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Advaita. Aditya, please go ahead.
Okay, so I think I kind of agree with Advaita on this. So for the deep thinkers, there would always be a demand for them because someone still has to I guess command the AI or like tell the AI how things should be done or the philosophy of that. At least until AGI pops up, and then I mean, after AGI pops up, it's fair game for everyone. But I think deep thinkers would still be there, and I think they would be the most in demand type of people also because of AI. Like in finance, Like if you know anything about Excel modeling or anything like that, mostly Claude is capable of doing like 50-60% of that. But then the thing is, you still need to think about the assumptions, and I think that's the main value add which a deep thinker can do now, because the other Excel stuff, it's just like, hard work and it's not much thinking. So that's one thing for the deep thinkers. And maybe for the other people, so I mean, I don't want to say like they usually do the manual work, which can't be replaced. But again, like not all things can be replaced by machines. Humans would always be more efficient in some way or the other for maybe some manual stuff, like maybe um I mean, I can't like think of too much, like maybe cleaning or something like that because of the flexibility or whatever. So I think there would be newer jobs opened up in those fields, but the demand of deep thinkers would always be there again until AGI pops up, and after that, who knows?
Right, thank you, Aditya. So, going back to the topic a little, I think the concern is not primarily about AI, it is how capitalism as a system operates and how it has evolved. Now, it is currently a system that has been optimized purely for efficiency. It tends to reward whatever produces the highest output at the lowest cost. Historically, we saw it as machines replacing physical labor in many, many industries, to the point where most manual or hard labor in certain industries has been completely replaced by machines that was once, physical labor. Today, it increasingly is starting to mean AI replacing cognitive labor. So the question is not whether machines or AI should replace humans and take their jobs. This is not about job displacement at all. When we're talking about capitalism, for me personally, the core question is whether efficiency has become the goal instead of a tool in this system. It should have been a tool to increase efficiency, but somehow it just is starting to look like the end goal, the final destination for capitalism is efficiency at all costs. So, with that, I'll now let Michael take his turn.
Thank you very much. And I have to really agree with you on this. We are looking at a system that is, I would always call it rigged towards super efficiency. And I think maybe from the beginning of the capitalism, that was maybe not the entire plan or the strategy. However, that is how it has become more and more prevalent. And whether we have AI or we have another tool, or even when internet came, it doesn't really change the fundamental sort of alignment with capitalism, because the fundamental alignment is, as you said, more profit wins, cheaper always wins. The problem we see many times is that cheaper or more profit might not be better for human beings. I will give you an example. There's a tree mostly in south of the world. It's called Moringa oleifera. You can look it up online. This tree is an amazing abundance of nutrients. It's a great superfood. Just picking the leaves from this tree and eating it is fantastic. 28% dry weight protein, all the 9 amino acids, totally balanced for us human beings, contains more C vitamin than oranges, and calcium, iron, and so forth and so forth. This is a super tree. And this is what a lot of hospitals gives to children when they come and they are malnourished. Right, so why isn't everybody growing this tree? Or why isn't everybody eating this? Why is most people, at least in the western part of the world, going to the store and buying capsules with magnesium, with kalium, with whatever they need, omega-3? I believe that is a good example of where this type of system fails. The best solution is not to buy 100 different capsules and keeping tab on that and paying that monthly. The best solution for human beings would probably be, if they can, to grow this tree by themselves or get it in another way. And for me, that highlights What I see is the inefficiency in the capitalist system. What is best might not always win. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Michael. Advaita, please go ahead.
So there's been a lot of sentiments against capitalism and pointing out its flaws. There are many streams and variants of capitalism, but I'd argue that most of the faults we see today in many different versions of it. For example, the example just given by Michael, it seems to be a lack of consumer awareness as well as a lack of competition. Because if someone was aware of the various superfoods or aware of better practices, they could immediately make a business out of it. They could immediately start implementing, say, certain goals, even, or spread and create a culture of more health awareness and more sustainable practices and fix the problem. It seems mainly a problem of more technical things such as awareness, or maybe even problems like Western culture or how easily they'll adopt that, so on. What I'd say about capitalism is while it does, the main problems with it is that it requires a strong, as previously mentioned, a strong government that can enforce policies and has low corruption rates. Even China in the 1970s, they had to adopt a capitalist model, switching from communism to lift its people out of poverty. But, sorry. I'd still argue that capitalism has extreme benefits. We've seen time and time again, every single country has to adopt some version of capitalism and use it for economic growth. Most of the shots against capitalism seem to have more with, say, technicalities or the culture or a lack of awareness or the priorities of the very nation instead of capitalism itself, which eventually just falls down to the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Advaita. I see Puneet. Please go ahead.
Yes. So I was saying that capitalism has many cons as well. The first is crony capitalism that is prevalent in the US, where big companies lobby with the government. And sometimes this big companies lobbying hurts the vulnerable sections of the society. We see some of this happening in India as well and in countries Latin America countries. And the second thing is corruption. Like many business leaders, they can use political, like they can pay politicians money and then expect favors in return, like, tax cuts, legitimizing monopolies. And the third thing is usually what happens are that capitalism concentrates economic wealth. Like there will be winners and losers. Those who have economic power will naturally want political power. Some may not want it, but majority of people having economic power will want political power. So that is a question mark on how do we deal with this so that economic power is separated from political power and we ensure that everybody has a right in the political sphere. Because if business leaders have more power, more say in the government, that means those marginalized sections have less say in the government. And the second thing about is planned economy. As I said, that Haitian knowledge problem exists in planned economy. And another thing about planned economy is when there is central economic planner, usually the government, this concentrates power. We are giving economic power to government. Government already has legitimate use of power, like violence, it has political power, and when you give them economic power, that can lead to authoritarian government and inefficiency as well. The bureaucratization of economic process, like we saw in Soviet Union, and then crony capitalism in the US. So that is something that is a challenge for socialism as well. And also about capitalism that it underinvests in public goods like basic healthcare, education. We have top colleges, but these colleges have high fees. What about the students who come from poor backgrounds? There are no private colleges for them except for certain exceptions. They have to rely on government funded colleges, government funded healthcare. So that is the thing that capitalism will always cater to those who have demand. The poor people, they don't have demand. Like they want essential services, but they don't have the capacity to pay for that services. So I think capitalism in essential services is a big question mark. And also infrastructure. Infrastructure, capitalism will promote infrastructure in industrialized regions. But what about tribal communities, rural areas? They also need development. So if anybody can say this, counter my point and have like, present a solution or present another perspective, I will be happy to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Puneet. Kevin, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, I want to take my stand on this topic. Like the topic is capitalism. Capitalism is the best economic model. We have agree or disagree. I can say that capitalism is the best economic model, but we can't say that capitalism is like best model which we have, because I feel that capitalism, neither socialism can be fixed as a best model, because we need a mixed economy in any part of the world. I feels that if we just follow capitalism, it will completely end up in a bad situation. It's completely my personal stand, because uh, capitalism, we know it took a lot of resources from the country, the natural resources, the workforce, the hard work of the people, everything will be taken by the capitalism. And if it is, in the end, capitalism will end up with the monopolies. And in the other end, like if we follow socialism, the growth of the country will be very slow. And yeah, in this competitive world, the countries who fought with other countries in all the aspects, we have to take our stand both economically, and in all the aspects we have to we should have a big stand. So I don't feel that socialism is also a best model. So I feel that we should focus on a mixed economy, which should have a sustainable growth. Yeah. So this is what my stand. And one of our participants have mentioned that like if AI is there, like in the end, the humans, we have to do the hard works, only the hard works, cleaning works and something like that. So I feel that that is capitalism. If we just follow AI, that will end to a capitalism. So the thing is, we can use AI for a base work or a structural thing, but the upper hand should be ours. We should take the decision on our own, and we should not let AI or anything to suppress us. So this will be a socialism. So socialism mixed with capitalism will be the better thing for the world in a sustainable growth. Even many countries who is following capitalism, even we can, I guess, if Dubai or like Arab countries fits in, they are a capitalist country, because they have the resource. They are using it very well. Completely, they are using it very well, and they are one of the richest country. Even like in FIFA 2022, they don't have any infrastructures. They didn't have any infrastructure to conduct the 2022 FIFA World Cup, but Qatar made it happen. How? They had the capital, they have the resource, they have the money, economic resources, which they gained through the capitalism, and they invested they got the sponsors, and they got the FIFA officials through the capital which they had. And from that, the country conducted FIFA. Yeah. So but in the same way, if you think, if Qatar or the other Arab countries is focusing on the capitalism only, at one point of year, like it may be 3000 or 2000 years later, the resources of petroleum and other natural resources will end up. What will the country do? How will the people and the other world, the people who depends on the petroleum gas resources, will survive? So if we just focus on the capitalism, and if we feels that capitalism is the best thing to go ahead, we will fail as a human. The entire population will fail as a human. So I feel that capitalism mixed with socialism in a mixed economic method with a sustainable growth is the best option to go with. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Good take on the topic. And from what I've gathered from everybody's arguments, I think
Mhm.
everybody has somewhat been leaning towards proposing a mixed economy as a solution. But then there is also a catch to that. We see so many mixed economies in the world, but there are certain countries, like we were talking about earlier, You could take Denmark, Sweden, Norway. These are countries that are funding their extensive social programs through productive market economies. Their success is proof that wealth creation and redistribution are not actually opposites. Redistribution actually depends on wealth being created in the first place. So for me, that also creates like this sort of paradoxical view where we are on one side criticizing capitalism for all the inefficiencies it has created in the current system, which again is true for any other system. You could take socialism, you could find out a lot of things that have gone wrong with socialism as it has evolved. So I would like to add a little bit of nuance on what are certain things that I personally appreciate about capitalism, if you will. And after that, we can move into the rebuttal session. And for that, per person, you will be given a time limit of 3 minutes. So form your arguments and counters accordingly. So if we're going to evaluate economic systems by outcomes rather than ideals, capitalism, I believe, has a very, very strong case. No other economic model has produced as much wealth, innovation, and poverty reduction at scale. And I'm not talking about a particular country, I'm talking about the global economy. So, over the last few decades, countries that embraced markets and trade generally experienced faster growth than those that remained heavily controlled. China's party reduction after market reforms and India's growth after liberalization uh, in the 1990s, very famously known as the LPG reforms, are often cited as examples for these and for very good reason. Whatever one thinks of capitalism's flaws, the evidence that markets can create prosperity is very difficult to ignore, if you ask me. And then capital solves a very practical problem: information. In a modern economy where millions of products, services, workers, businesses, you know, are existing, they're coexisting. There is no central authority that can know everybody's preferences and needs. I believe Kritika was talking about the same earlier. So here, prices act as signals, going back to, I think, Puneet's point. So when demand rises, the prices rise naturally, encouraging more production. When demand falls, resources shift elsewhere. This allows economies to adapt continuously without requiring a central planner to make every decision and micromanage it. Another major strength, according to me, innovation. Profit is something that acts as an incentive to encourage individuals and firms to take risks, invest in R&D and develop new products. Many technologies that define modern life emerged because there was an incentive to innovate. Capitalism tends to reward productivity. While this really can create some serious inequalities, it can also encourage efficiency, entrepreneurship, and economic dynamism. A society that rewards problem solving and value creation may generate more opportunities than one which continually prioritizes equal outcomes regardless of contribution. Finally, like I said before, countries like Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, their social programs are funded by the productivity they have in their market economies. So, them being consistently ranked as the happiest countries in the world due to having mixed economies, it still depends on their wealth creation, that their wealth is redistributed in a way that benefits their economy. So, capitalism, in my opinion, is not perfect. Neither is any other system. But it, you know, uh, like the critics have said, we have pointed out so many inefficiencies, for example, environmental challenges, market failures, inequality. But these are also problems that can be managed through proper regulation and institutions, not reasons to abandon the system. Now, one may argue that there is so much corruption, the system is rigged, there is wealth concentration. True, but if these are to somehow be solved, capitalism is still a very efficient model, I would argue. But then, like said, now it will be time for the rebuttals. So if anybody has a counter for me or anybody else, or if you have another argument that you will pose as a question which is open to the rest of us, please go ahead. Beethoven, yes, please.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I mean I have a complete like doubt regarding I pardon. I already asked pardon because I'm not fluent in this language, and my thoughts would be kind of scattered around and not completely coherent. And my ideas, I swim along those ideas that this dichotomy between capitalism and socialism itself, I feel like a fallacy where capitalism, I don't think it's a system that humans made. I mean, money exchange was just an evolution of barter system. What we say as a capitalist society is just, one a stage of the civilization. Even Karl Marx said there cannot be a communism or socialist state without a capitalist one. So it's not a paradox in a way; it's a dialectical nature of evolution. And what the real dichotomy is nature versus human. Non-intervention, harmonious flow, or the interventionist thing, meaning we, as for example, neoliberal ideas, I guess, allows for interventions, whereas the original Adam Smith idea was of the invisible hand and to let market decide everything. And this actually takes away the human element, whereas in the interventionist view, we are trying to center everything around human, and that's where socialism idea is. So when someone is arguing against capitalism, he's not actually arguing against the whole money system, the supply demand, the whole all basically all of economics. He's actually arguing against to making economics the center and cutting away the human centrality from it. Yeah, that's what my idea is. So when someone is advocating for socialism or suggesting a reform in capitalism, is not necessarily going against the idea or championing other ideologies. Capitalism, since is a natural thing, and so nature does needs to, and nature is kind of brutal, and it does need intervention to be rectified and reformed. And that's where other ideas kind of contribute. I won't say they go against or in stand in opposite, but in contributions, because that's what the idea of dialect is, to take away the antithesis and thesis and make a synthesis. So yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you for being a patient listener.
That adds actually a lot of nuance. Very good point. So if anybody likes to go next or counter somebody else, have your own perspective, please go ahead. Beethoven, not sure. Did you raise your hand again? You want to go ahead one more time? All right. If not, I see Disha raising her hand. Yes, please, Disha.
While everybody is talking about mixed economy and how capitalism is not beneficial for us, I beg to differ, because history has consistently showed that countries embracing capitalism have achieved faster economic growth, um, perhaps higher living standards and greater innovation than their centrally planned counterparts. So, for example, if you take the United States transformed a young nation into world's largest economy through private enterprise, while companies like Apple, Microsoft, Tesla revolutionized industries without government direction. If you take example of, let's say, China, uh, the reduction of over I'm not sure on the number, but about 800 million people from extreme poverty. It began only after it introduced market oriented reforms and private ownership incentives. Let's take example of South Korea, perhaps. Country once poorer than many African nations become global technology powerhouse through export driven capitalism. Controlled economy, it continues to struggle. So when you see this contrast, I believe capitalism rewards encouraging entrepreneurs to solve problems and create value. Uh, Nearly every technology we use today, from smartphones and online shopping to perhaps the life-saving medicines, they have emerged from businesses competing to serve consumers better. So while capitalism is inequality, the evidence suggests that it has generated more prosperity and lifted more people and countries out of poverty than any other economic system in the human history. So the question, therefore, is not whether capitalism is flawless or not, but I would say a better question would be whether any alternative has delivered any better results at such a scale. And I believe history suggests the answer is no to that. That's what my counter is.
Thank you, Disha. So what Beethoven was talking about was something that was very personally interesting to me. So to form a little bit of argument on that and building up on what Disha and I were already suggesting about capitalism as a system, it is that when Beethoven started about how these two are not actually strict opposites, there's something that come naturally as we evolve as a civilization, right? So, if we are going to look at it a little bit historically, economic systems have evolved rather than appearing fully formed. I don't think any system right now is a proper system if we look at it from that lens. Capitalism has evolved, continues to evolve, so does socialism and any other system in place. Now, we have moved from barter systems to money, from feudal economies to mercantilism, from industrial capitalism to welfare states. In that sense, socialism and capitalism can be viewed as different responses to problems created by earlier economic arrangements. Now, modern economies already contain elements of both. As we see in many countries, majority of countries even, most capitalist countries have public schools, public roads, central banks, welfare programs, labor laws, X amount of things. Likewise, many countries that identify as socialist use markets, prices, and private businesses not only for wealth creation but also as indicators for economic progress. If that's true, the debate may not be capitalism or socialism or which one's better, or if a mixed economy is a solution to all the problems that we currently have, but rather where on the spectrum of capitalism and socialism should a society sit. Markets solve some problems efficiently, governments solve other problems that markets struggle with, you know however, if capitalism and socialism are simply stages of evolution, what exactly are we going to evolve towards? More markets, more state interventions, a hybrid model? If a hybrid model, what is going to be in what proportions? More state interventions? Are we going to have more free market? Or, let's say that we settle on a specific proportion for a specific country. How exactly are we going to know that, yes, we have now reached a better system? What metrics are we going to employ? I think that would be a very interesting take. So, if anybody has anything to add on that, please go ahead.
Uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, you said it beautifully. And yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, no system is something a monolith. It has every system has continuously evolved, and in fact, if enough amalgamation is given to a system, it can transform into something else and can be completely unrecognizable from its previous state. And for example, even many says the imperialism is also a height of capitalism, but we have passed the imperialist stage. And when it's kind of I'm currently I'm proposing a rebuttal of capitalism. When someone says capitalism has lifted many of out of poverty, we must also see when did it intersected, when what was the time period, and we say the time period was exactly when modern world, I mean the advent of modernity started. So in so what I mean to say is when we grew as a civilization, so our I mean growth and development in our society very much intersected with the modern reforms or different ideas that were erupting. And communism and socialism is in fact a modern idea itself. So kind of, I mean, it would be completely biased to give all credits to capitalism, because just like you said, many countries have labor unions, labor reforms, and minimum wage, which are kind of elements of or characteristics of socialist economy. But we see those things in a capitalist country too. So yeah, I mean, every country is kind of a, I would say, a amalgamation or in a spectrum of the whatever ideology a country is professing. So what matters or what importantly matters is, do they keep people as the center? For example, we everyone agree that feudalism is not the right kind of ideology for any society, or imperialism, because they don't put people in the center. Similarly, all the criticism for capitalism only comes when we see the elite or the upper class getting prioritized over the others, over the vast majority of people. Only then we see the problems with capitalism. And that's where I guess intervention is needed. And yeah, that's all my take. Thanks. Thank you.
Vidwan,
Thank
I'm
you.
so sorry to intervene. I'm not clear on.
Uh,
Can you please rephrase what you meant when you
Disha,
talk
Yeah.
about?
Disha and Beethoven, let's raise hands before we talk. All right, rebuttals are fully welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I thought rebuttals are something when you can counter somebody else without raising hand.
Yeah. I mean, thought same.
You can get to clarifying if you'd like, Beethoven.
So when you talk about that, capitalisms are not driving people out of poverty or countries. So you were talking about the timing. I was not clear on that point. Can you please rephrase that?
By timing, I mean, if you see monarch, they are basically capitalist, and in no monarchy has people developed. But the capitalism started showing result when suddenly democracies or nation state around the world emerged. And if we see, nation states and democracy are all modern phenomena. And how can we attribute everything to capitalism and not to these other ideologies, which are actually political and on different, completely on different lane, which may have contributed more to the development of society or to the upliftment of people than just the economic system. Yeah, yeah, that was my clarification, I guess.
Disha, you have anything to add?
Yes. So I believe you cannot compare monarchy and capitalism. I believe in monarchy, one person has the, um, I think somebody wrote it in the chat also. So I believe in monarchy, one person has the entire power, and uh, everybody surrounding it, the capitalists who are driven by profits, um, and not through social impact, uh, were not able to do it in a. Okay, so I would say monarchy is not true capitalism in its purest form. That would be my counter to your point.
Monarchy does resemble the nature of
It does
capitalist state.
resemble, but it is not a pure form of capitalism.
I mean, in a capitalist state, usually the wealth flows from the resource producing class to, the owners class, and that same happens in a monarchy, and same happened in an imperialist. If we it's known history that India was conquered by uh, by a company rather than an empire. It was later transferred to, to viceroyship, but it started as a, conquer the resource consumption of companies. The monarchy of the China was brought down by actually the companies. The Indonesia and Malaysia was also Dutch India Company was something, what I guess colonized most of the world. So what I see is capitalism to its extreme does lead to imperialism, and monarchy is one of, I mean, subset of it. And not, and I think you are kind of intersecting a dictatorship with socialism, which is not clearly the case. A socialist state can be a democratic state where people are actually elected. In fact, so I would argue communism is actually more democratic, where you are actually saying कि labor has a, vote in where the values of things goes.
But I would still argue that comparing monarchy and capitalism is comparing apples to oranges, because monarchy is a political system that determines who holds power, while capitalism, I would rather say it's an economic system that determines how resources are produced and exchanged. So a monarchy can be capitalist. If you take example of modern Gulf monarchies, maybe, but it can be socialist or anything in between. So, if the
Would you
argument is
say
that
that
monarchy delivers stability and prosperity, the evidence suggests that prosperity does not come from the crown itself, but from the economic freedom the citizens enjoy. So, maybe the world's richest monarchies, such as if you take example of UK, perhaps Japan, Gulf states, derive much of their success from market-based economies, private enterprises, and trade. So, conversely, I would say history is filled with monarchies that remained poor and stagnant, or some of them even collapsed because of power was concentrated into small elite hands with little incentive to innovate. Capitalism, on the other hand,
uh,
does not depend on wisdom of a single rural or maybe a royal family. It allows millions of individuals to make economic decisions, compete with each other, and create wealth. So,
All
therefore,
right.
successful monarchies today, I believe, is their success is often better explained by capitalistic principles that they embrace than by the existence of a king or a queen.
All right. Thank you, Disha. Beethoven, if you have a counter, go ahead. And
yeah,
then
yeah.
following will be Aditya, and then we can go back to Disha if she has anything to add further.
Okay, cool. Thank you for letting me speak. Fact check. I don't think the UK monarchy is the, richest monarchy. I guess the richest monarchy is Brunei or Saudi something. And in fact, Saudi and these Morocco, not Saudi, Jordan. These are monarchy and capital state. I guess Aramco, which is Saudi's oil company, is a company listed in a S&P 500. Most monarchy have their money and power from oligarchs. In fact, any dictatorship is very, very, deeply linked to a capitalist class of in a society. Whether take any dictators in any society, whether take in any countries too, whether take Russia, where the oligarchs are most infamous there. So monarchy does, it's a clear case study. Monarchy does have relation, and also you didn't clarified uh, on my claim when I said that colonialism is extreme of capitalism, because colonialism only started when companies from UK, East India Company and Dutch India Company and other companies went on to conquer. First, on I guess disguise of trade, they went on to conquer. So those are examples of capitalism. It's only modern development that we limited companies from having a private army and making their own laws in their own control district. Most, in fact, Rothschild was, in a decade was the richest person, and the American government had to, compartmentalize his companies. So what I mean to say is capitalism is producing good result in this modern world because it has been controlled tamed and kind of intervention mentioned very frequently and every time. And many generous capitalists actually agree the interventionism is a key thing that's keeping capitalism from going rogue. Otherwise, I don't know the quote who actually said this. I think he was it was Karl Marx himself who said this. The finality stage of a capitalism is an imperialist state. If you say in a monarchy prosperity, I think you are okay. I forgot what your point was regarding prosperity and monarchy. I think if you restate it, I can counter it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Beethoven. Aditya, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I completely agree with Disha. So I think we are mixing two systems of so one is the political system, which can be a monarchy, it can be a republic, and so on, and then the economic system, it can be uh, like capitalism and so on, and like okay. So I think we all would agree that the exact opposite of capitalism could be communism, and I think communism and a monarchy are like more similar than a monarchy than capitalism, because in a monarchy there's like one person calling out the shots. In communism also, like that's how it's supposed to happen, but like as we have seen, if everyone is equal, then how can someone make the decisions, right? There has to be someone who is unequal, and that's like the exact like that breaks the definition of communism, but that's how practical communism actually functioned in the Soviet Union, in China, now in every other place, even in North Korea and every other communist country. So again, like I would say communism and monarchy is closer than monarchy and capitalism. And also, uh, just having colonies isn't capitalism. I think it's just a monarchy being a monarchy. Obviously, like you would want to gain more land on the expense of other people, but that's not like an economic system. It's not like you're allocating the best resources so that you conquer like India or something like that. Like using your logic, then even Napoleon was a capitalist, and basically everyone else for that matter could be called a capitalist. But I don't think that's the case. We are like mixing two distinct systems, and we are trying to merge them, but I don't think we could do that. They're like a bunch of independent things, and yeah, that was my counter, I guess.
Thank you. Advaita, please go ahead.
I think this discussion of monarchy, capitalism, and communism is a bit strange. The only, I'd say, monarchy and democracy are polar opposites. In fact, even discussing about the government, monarchy, and democracy, this is a sort of a strange or irrelevant from the economic models we're discussing. You can definitely have a monarchy and a capitalist um, economic system. You can technically have a monarchy and a communist system. By that I mean, like, look at the Soviet Union. The main thing about a monarchy is that the keys of power lie in one single person. In the USSR, a lot of the power was concentrated at the top. So functionally, it was almost the same as a monarchy or a dictatorship because the keys of power lied in only one person or a very small group of people. Um. So yeah, that's my main question. Actually, I wanted to ask a question. Thousands of years ago, almost every single nation followed some kind of feudalistic government or had some sort of monarchy. This is because it was the most efficient and practical model for controlling an extremely large population and enforcing some law or creating some order when resources were extremely limited and it was not at all possible to govern such large populations like we can today. My question is currently we're using a capitalist model with some elements of socialism mixed in. What are the evils that are of, say, liberal capitalism or venture capitalism, whatever? Should we just accept them as necessary evils of today because of the limits of our society or technology? Or is there actually a possible better model? Because, like, if you look at third world countries or second world countries, is it at all possible to improve upon the current economic model? Like, at all? Is it even something to consider? Look at China, in fact. It's known for its various crimes, it's known for its huge purges and whatnot, but today it's one of the most powerful nations. So, whatever fault there is today in the capitalist system, should we just accept it that it's not possible to improve? That's the main question I want to ask.
Thank you, Advaita. You really created a lot of room for thinking right there. We'll definitely get back on that. Meanwhile, Beethoven, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I feel what's the sentiment going on. I get not to be condescending, but I think many of your idea of a capitalist state and a communist state comes from the division in a, I mean, Cold War division between USSR and USA. Just like there is a no perfectly capitalist country, there's no perfectly communist country. And North Korea is, I mean, obviously a pseudo communist state. It's basically a dictatorship. But why I have linked the political system with the economic system? Because they are heavily related. The power comes for the only reason society, I mean, distribute power because they want to distribute resources. Power is just a fancy term for saying who takes the decision of a control. And yes, it's true. Historically, monarchy emerged as a national way of optimizing resource distribution or enforcing law. And enforcing laws also for property rights, which indirectly links to economics. So, indirectly, politics and economics are heavily related. Economic policies are enacted by politicians. Politicians are the, I mean, the characters or the nature of the politician that are selected is also affected by, I mean, economic system the country is in. For example, as Plato said, the country that prioritizes, I mean, what I say, I mean, meaning he just made a criticism of a capitalist democracy where a alcohol seller would always win an election than a doctor who gives, I mean, better medicine. uh, okay, well, this is going into a tangent, but what I mean to say is, since these two things are heavily linked, and we cannot just I mean criticize or eulogize capitalism in isolation without seeing the real world constraint. And it's true, socialism too, as it developed, mostly it developed under dictatorship, which Lenin obviously didn't wanted. In fact, he said at the deathbed, don't let Stalin to do so, he will accumulate power. And yeah, the most ideal way to make a communist state is actually to let people do plebiscite on each bill. Like, I guess, I think Switzerland or Sweden, either of the two countries does have this direct democracy system. And yeah, that was my point. And I'm still, I think I'm unanswered regarding capitalism leading to imperialism. For example, the trade companies from Europe went colonize Africa or Asia to collect resources, right? And yeah, I'm when consumption resources or for production, when things is required, the raw materials are required. So indirectly, a capitalist state with no bounds, no boundary, leads to imperialism. And I'm actually talking about the extreme of the capitalism. And currently, we are in a neo-imperialist era, wherein we see capitalism working in a very subtle way.
All right, thank you. Advaita, go ahead, please.
Okay, I wanted to say, yeah, I don't think capitalism is going to lead to imperialism. You mentioned about colonialism as an example, I think, and you also said that that capitalism operates in a subtle way today. Yeah, I think the last time capitalism was like laissez-faire, pure capitalism was trusted, we ended up with paint thinner in milk. This happened in America, and it's how the FDA, their food regulation system, was created. What I was and about your point about monarchy and the keys of power, yeah. So basically, monarchy, oligarchy, dictatorship, whatever. The main thing is basically how power is collected and distributed. What I'm saying is, thousands of years ago, you couldn't spread power and give power to every single citizen of a nation. It just wasn't possible. And that too, that requires is the citizen to say, be educated and be able to make a proper decision, an educated decision on who they wanted as a ruler. Yeah, a huge fault of the monarchy is that it's basically dependent on the ruler. You could have an excellent ruler, or you could have someone insane as your ruler who drives your nation to loss. Then slowly this evolved to a democracy or something adjacent to that, where people had some say in who was ruler, and you didn't need to throw a French Revolution to rewrite who had power. In the modern system, we follow democracy. What I wanted to ask was, there's still huge inequality. Money and the amount of power or wealth you've accumulated across generations, this does create inequality. I wanted to ask, is it even possible to close this inequality? Because still, today compared to 50 years ago, the poorest person in our society possibly leads a better life than they would have otherwise. That inequality and gap between the rich and poor is growing, but it's still an improvement from what it was. The main question still wasn't answered. I wanted to know, is it even possible to further improve upon our current political model? Is it possible that um, to improve power distribution, given the complexities, like we're a second world country, India is technically a second world country. There are other countries that are also progressing but are still stuck in third world scenarios. I wanted to ask is it even possible to consider another model, considering how effective capitalism is in raising countries from poorer states or improving quality of life? Is it even possible or feasible to consider other models? That's my only question.
All right. Thank you, Advaita. So, just to dive a little deeper on the question that she's been asking, I think the question here is, the answer to her question, from my perspective at least, depends on whether you view the current shortcomings of capitalism as bugs or features, right? For example, like inequality, the aggressive economic cycles, environmental problems that we're facing, and concentration of wealth problems. Can these be fixed through better policy, or are these inherent consequences of a system built around private profit and competition? Now, the answer could completely differ based on how you view these shortcomings, as a feature or as a bug that can be fixed, right? Because, see, if you're somebody who views this as a bug, as a shortcoming, as a small inefficiency, you could be of the perspective that, look, every economic system has flaws. Relevant question is not whether capitalism is perfect, but whether any alternative or any better evolved version of capitalism performs better. From this perspective, capitalism should be continuously reformed rather than replaced. Now, there is also the other side of the argument, where it is assumed that this existing framework, i.e., that is capitalism, is the best we can do. History is full of systems that once seemed permanent: feudalism, monarchy, mercantilism. The fact that capitalism is currently dominant doesn't necessarily mean it is the final stage of economic evolution. Now, from what I personally feel about this, is that the real divide is not between people who defend capitalism or people who criticize capitalism. It is between those who see some capitalism as something to optimize and those who see it as something that eventually is to transcend. If we believe a better system is possible, whether by replacing capitalism fully or by improving capitalism as a system, the real questions are: what are its mechanics? How does it allocate resources? How does it encourage innovation? How does it build in a way to avoid the failures that previous alternatives have already encountered? So these are the things that we really need to go into if we are going to think more deeply about what Advaita has been trying to ask. So with that, I'll now let Disha go ahead.
Okay, so I believe I agree with your first perspective where you say that capitalism if not the best, it becomes a natural choice for us in lack of better options. Because I believe it provides solution that the economy needs. Beethoven, where he talks about that wherever a problem exists, government intervention is the solution. I don't agree with it. I rather agree with Aditya, because I have seen, and actually history often shows the opposite. When mobile phones were a luxury in 1990s, if you look at it from that lens, government did not make it affordable. Competition did. When air travel was an expensive, government did not make an effort to make them affordable, but market competition eventually did. Uh, People wanted faster communication, so government did not invent smartphones or social media search engines. Entrepreneurs competing for profits, they did it themselves. And that's why we see the world is so revolutionized today. Uh, Capitalism itself contains a self-correcting mechanism. So if consumers are unhappy, competitors emerge to offer a better product. This we've seen with a lot of products, and I've even quoted several examples. Government intervention assumes that a small group of policymakers can allocate resources better than millions of consumers making individual choices. Uh, I don't agree with that perspective because the evidence of the last 2 centuries suggests otherwise. Most of the products, technologies, even services that improved human life become accessible not because of government intervention, but because capitalism made them cheaper, better, and what do you call widely more accessible to everybody. So, in lack of better options, I would not even say in lack of better options because I would say natural capitalism is a natural choice because in the world which is continuously evolving, you need a economic form uh, which can run at a faster pace than that. That was my counter.
Thank you, Disha. Beethoven, please go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I prepared so many counters in my head. I mean, I fumble so bad. Like I forget things very easily. Oh, okay. Anyway, as per I think Aditya said, can we make suicide? I mean, I don't remember the question, but the answer is yeah, we can make everything better. Capitalism is basically civilization, and by introducing good policies and intervention doesn't mean like controlling every single thing. As I said, capitalism is naturally grown, and historically monarchy was the most optimized economic model to govern society. I actually agree with this where our economic system evolved from at various stages, and yeah, it was a historical necessity, and for every time period I would say there is a different economic model that suits better for the society to minimize as much as inequality as possible. I mean that's what the whole, I mean the aim for all our economic thinking should be. And to the dilemma between whether capitalism being so ubiquitous, it's either needed to optimize or it's something to be required to be transited to. So in this case, what my opinion is, when capitalism is optimized, an intervention is a way of optimization. And when it is done, it eventually transits to a better system. The talks of socialism and communism only started in, I guess, 19th century. So even before then, there was no talks on capitalism. Yet the capitalist system existed because that was something. Capitalism is something that has been ubiquitous throughout the society. Most monarchy was a capitalist society. I mean, even I googled searched it. Even most monarchy that are present today are a capitalist society. I mean, what could be greater, bigger example than Saudi's national company, which is listed in S&P 500? I mean, its market cap is covered. I mean, that's literally part of our economic system. And I think Disha said that intervention doesn't. I mean, interact with market prices. I guess that's not the point of intervention. Is market prices are decided by supply and demand from rules of economics. That's a too big a system for government to intervene in. Government can only intervene in things where it impacts people indirectly, setting minimum wage or anything that's necessary. Intervention doesn't mean that. Yeah, I suggested a book, entrepreneur book. It actually tells how government intervention actually helped. For example, most of the companies high tech technology like screen touch phone released by iPhone, all the research, the foundational research for it was actually funded by the US government. Internet was actually funded by US government. So what I mean to say is, yeah, intervention has, lead to very positive results. Otherwise we wouldn't have been having this Zoom here. Most of the amazing technologies we have are from open source. Open source are best example of a communist, I mean, efforts we have come up in, technical world. The Chrome browser is made from Chromium, which is open source, and most companies do open source. So it's not a paradox in me. They are actually kind of transiting, and yeah. So for me, this capitalist system, yes, it's many of the most of the things is required because we naturally arrived at it here. And communal socialism is not, system to replace it with, but something to transit to, and not transit to events, not transit to, immediately, but eventually through optimizing capitalism. And we ourselves, we see it when we optimize it enough, it's something better. Thank
Thank you, Beethoven. Kevin, please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to answer Advaita's question. Like she asked that, like whether can we close the gap by having the capitalism ideology or economy. Yeah, I feels that the capitalism is like a horse, like which helps us to help us to reach a destined location as fast as possible. But I think that the horse need a halter, which is the government. The government can like improve the healthcare and education policy, taxation, and other labor production laws and acts, and supports a small business and other competitive laws, which can helps to close the gap, especially like coming to the progressive taxation, which can helps to reduce the helps to reduce the gap between the people who are in the lower economy and people who are in the higher economy. That is the most rebutted or criticized point against the capitalist society. So I guess the progressive taxation, awareness among the public, and improved healthcare, which is more important for the people who are in a economic, like poor economic position. So I guess this helps to reduce the gap among in the way of wealth and the class. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Kevin. Advaita, please go ahead.
Okay, so starting, I think there was a point said earlier where by Disha, where she said that government intervention has not helped make products more accessible, or the benefits of capitalism are purely to do with those privatized institutions. And as Beethoven had also said, that's not the point of intervention. The point of intervention is strict government policy that's regularly enforced to ensure that these privatized companies don't screw over customers for gain of profits. Marxism was born because during the industrial era, Karl Marx saw the worst of this: child laborers working in factories day and night, people suffering extremely low wages, while the owners of these companies would benefit extreme lots and amass more wealth. And as discussed earlier, the main problem or point of discussion seems to be resource allocation in like modern day capitalism and what features we're discussing about it. I'd say that resource allocation is entirely dependent on the government. Um, so of course, this is where Beethoven's point is coming up, where the two economic and governmental systems are related. It's for resource allocation and policy enforcement. How the government effectively manages its resources could depend on, say, who is in power. While a democratic system would suggest we trust the people to select a good leader for power or hand power amongst many different people and force them to cooperate, under times of crisis or when a nation is under extreme poverty or crisis or in a bad situation, is I don't think this is feasible at all, which is where China's solution comes in of extreme state driven power and seizing control from the people and an almost oligarch or dictatorship style of governing, extremely authoritative, where every initiative is state led, using capitalism as a very effective system. Another point was also brought up by Rose on whether seeing these bugs, the downsides of capitalism as bugs or features. I say that it depends on the status of the nation we're talking about. In a worse off country that needs to be immediately lifted up from poverty or poor life quality, I'd say that the downsides of capitalism could even be features. That's the point. For example, intense competition, while it does have its negative impacts on the people, might be extremely necessary for generating, say, extremely skilled people or bringing the cream of the crop that can help further lift the country and its entire status. I'd say we should only really consider the downsides of capitalism or talk about these once for more developed countries. For example, Nordic countries have moved away from usual capitalist models and have focused more on the people's welfare because they're already stable as a government. Already, the life quality of life is stable. It's a wealthy country. The economics and all of that is fine. The only way I could see our society or our civilization transitioning away from capitalism is say maybe hundreds or a couple centuries from now, when quality of life or our systems have greatly improved. Only then could we even consider maybe changing our economic models or radically changing it. Because right now we don't have the resources, we don't have the educated populace, we don't have the resources for such a change. The evils of capitalism are necessary compared to the alternative. That's what I argue. And yeah, but still, reliable government is definitely required. Thanks.
Thank you, Advaita. Puneet, please go ahead.
The evils of capitalism are literally as said by Advaita now. It's okay because capitalism is required for growth, for upliftment of a developing country. But we don't know after it is developed what will be the condition like. Like there is crony capitalism, corruption, and unholy and unethical nexus between political leaders and business people. What will happen if the politic economic power translates into political power? Then I don't think the capitalism will be any beneficial. It will be more evil. Yes, that was my point. If anybody has, they can counter argue.
All right, thank you, Puneet. Beethoven, please go ahead, and Disha, you can follow.
Yeah, exactly. That was one. That was my. I mean, thanks, Puneet, for stating in that. That's what was actual counter when I was relating capitalism with monarchy, where the unholy nexus eventually developed between a capitalist class and the political class, which is kind of extreme of a capitalism. And as Rose said, whether say bugs or the feature of capitalism, whether it be bugs or the feature, to its extreme, it will eventually need an intervention. And intervention, that's where intervention is necessary to restrict capitalism from going rogue, from going away from the center of I mean human as a center. And since I'm not against capitalism, but everything cannot be left on the market whims. For example, we know USA is a capitalist society. It's very developed. It's military. I mean, its currency. It's I mean the strongest things. But its healthcare system, it has been left to the whims of market. The insurance company exploit the normal people there. Compared to that, in Europe, the healthcare system is too good. They have, I guess, social security is there in USA too. They have, I don't know the exact thing, but the healthcare system is heavily subsidized, and that's kind of, element of socialism in capitalism, and that's the amalgamation I'm rooting for. Yeah, that's I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Disha, please go ahead.
Okay, so where Beethoven talks about government intervention is necessary to prevent businesses from exploiting people for profit. But that assumes consumers are powerless and markets are incapable of correcting bad behavior. In reality, companies do mistreat customers, overcharge, or deliver poor values. But I believe, as I already stated, self-correcting mechanism of market really helps there. Um, and secondly, profit is not earned by harming people in a competitive market because profit is earned by serving people better than rivals. If my rival is selling things for X amount of price, I cannot charge X plus one, X plus two. If intervention becomes excessive, I would say it creates a different problem. Individuals and businesses began relying on the government uh, because rather than innovation and productivity, personal responsibility, they start relying on the government. History shows societies that progress when people are rewarded for taking risk, working hard, solving problems. Capitalism aligns self-interest with value creation. That would be my counter because businesses earn more only when they persuade customers that their product or service is worth buying. The drive for profit is actually not a flaw if you look at it that way. It is an incentive that has produced affordable food, medicines, transportation, even technology, and countless other improvements in quality of life. Excessive intervention can weaken the incentives and replace competition with dependence. As Beethoven rightly mentioned, that European societies have this highly subsidized healthcare system, but I believe people have become dependent on these systems rather than actually working hard to earn that amount of money to afford these kind of things. That would be my counter to government intervention.
Thank you. Beethoven, please go ahead.
Uh, I mean, are we actually deifying a self-correcting mechanism of a market? Because I mean, it's as I mean, analogous to gravity. It's a natural phenomenon. We can't entrust nature with the duty of our welfare. I mean, if we don't intervene when market is going against us, then aren't we just leaving everything to the whims of how world works? And it would be also kind of arrogant to think that all of the things or the economics model is something that is optimized for our benefit or our welfare. Most of the things are error prone and most of the things are bound to go out, I mean, in scale or in direction that's not beneficial or even harmful. And that's where I was saying the government intervention is required. As per the capitalist system, when we say capitalist system creates market, it's not that I mean, it's not that its market system is something very much unique to capitalism. Market is, I mean, it's something our civilization developed. Intervention is something where we are refining capitalism to work only to our interest. So capitalism is not an ideology to adhere to. Capitalism is something we continuously need to, I mean, uh, replenish or reformed. For example, our MRP is actually a government intervention, so that no companies could, I mean, exploit consumer from I mean selling it at a higher price. For farmers, MSP is kind of a government intervention, so that no companies could exploit farmers and take I mean, buy at a even lesser price. So MRP and MSP both are kind of government intervention, which are helped our society develop and get rid of exploitation. And on other point, you said like the self-corrective nature. I mean, it's kind of assumed also assumes that consumers are rational. They make rational choices, which are not such a I mean acceptable assumption even in consumer behavior theory in economics. And yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah,
All right. I'm sorry. Thank you. Advaita, please go ahead.
This is all just a rebuttal to the previous speaker, Disha's point. You had mentioned that for example, more socialist or welfare models, this risks making a population dependent and that they did not earn a right. But you also mentioned this while talking about healthcare, which I find really strange. I just want clarification on this point. Because is healthcare really something you should have to earn basic healthcare? Let's look at a certain example. Say you're from a village, you haven't had access or opportunity to say go for higher education, or due to some misfortune you have not been able to earn an extremely high paying job, but you still have to work 9 to 5, or say for at least 12 hours per day working, or in a construction job, whatever. Basically, and say you are not in an extremely high economic bracket and it is very difficult to get out of the situation. If you go through some accident, say god forbid a piano falls on you or something, this person, despite working, is going to be met with a hospital bill that apparently they have not earned yet. Not to mention, not creating subsidies, not using social welfare or to provide for things like healthcare or legal help. This screws over the people who are suffering most in society. For example, this doesn't even account for people who are facing medical conditions, people who are chronically in pain or disabled, who cannot work and, despite their best efforts, are struggling to cope with society. They are going to suffer in society because apparently they cannot earn their way to the top. If, for example, Stephen Hawking, he's paralyzed from the face down. If physics and the innovation, if scientific work happens to be at that point in time deemed not a priority or less important than, say, military investment, then that means we're going to leave Stephen Hawking to die or to suffer a lot from lack of financial incentive because he did not earn his way, apparently. So this kind of thinking, it leans towards this more extremely pro-capitalist thing, uh, pro-capitalist stance. It seems to just screw over the worst people in society and ultimately make things worse. Yeah, that's my main point.
Thank you, Advaita. That was a great point. So it's been about 2 hours, and I see that we are beginning to find some sort of middle ground when it comes to how efficient of a system capitalism is and whether it should be replaced or reformed. So I think we can start with our concluding statements for now. Same process. You will have to raise your hands and give in your concluding statements. So your concluding statements could be anything. Uh, the perspective that you came in with, or if there's something in the discussions that led you to changing your perspective a little bit. If you're neutral, if you'd suggest a completely different kind of system or suggest reforms, it is completely up to you. Yes, please, Beethoven.
uh, not related to the topic. I just want to thank everyone for being such a, I mean, such being so passionate about ideas that are relevant and that are needed to be discussed in society. And these forums or discussion are really helpful to refine our thoughts and and to enrich us with perspectives. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, and I would love to see this going. this happening. I mean, every Saturday it does. Do it happen any time?
Yes, it's a weekly thing.
Yeah, great, great, and kudos to you guys for, I mean, making this possible. Thank you.
I
Thank you
completely
so
agree
much.
with him. I actually I saw this on probably Google or somewhere, and I had joined very randomly, and I was not expecting such a fruitful discussion.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
I'm really glad that you guys found this both enjoyable and informative. So yeah, I mean that really makes me happy as the host. Anybody with concluding statements or anything else to add before we drop? Yes, please, Advaita.
Um, so the main things I gathered from this discussion, it was really nice to hear everyone's different perspectives, both for and against capitalism or discussing the nuances. Um, so far, it seems that economic models have always evolved with civilization, and each nation has their unique economic and governmental models to adjust for their specific situation. But what's certain is that for capitalism to function, a strong government that enforces its policies, that ensures contracts and legal laws are enforced, is also very much needed. Um, that capitalism, while it is a useful tool that can uplift the lives of many and has been in use even since monarchy times, is still always susceptible to improvement and can be enforced in various ways. And also that maybe McCarthyism, the whole anti-red, anti-communist movement in the US against communism, that may have heavily distorted our view of how communism, capitalism, how these economic models play with political models or government models. So our views may be really distorted by this. And that most importantly, in the future, it's possible that capitalism will eventually or inevitably shift into something else as our society progresses, as humanity goes forward. And of course, it's to remember and always question what the point of our systems are and where we're going as a species. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Disha, please go ahead.
So before I conclude, I want to clarify that I am not arguing that capitalism is perfect. I am arguing that it is the most effective system humanity has discovered for creating prosperity, driving innovation, and improving living standards. So, capitalism has lifted billions out of poverty, rewarded innovation, and continuously adapted to changing human needs. Um, every major technological revolution from industrial age to the digital era has been fueled by individuals and businesses competing to create value. While other systems rely on central planning or inherited authority, capitalism trusts millions of people to make decisions, take risks, and solve problems. Even that aligns with Darwin's principle of survival of the fittest. Capitalism institutionalized that principle by rewarding those who innovate and uh, replace those who actually fail to evolve. History has repeatedly shown that societies prosper not when choices are concentrated in the hands of few, but when freedom, competition, and individual initiatives they are allowed to flourish. So I would say capitalism should not be judged whether it is perfect, but by whether any alternative has delivered better outcomes at scale. Because I believe the evidence of history suggests that there is none. So I would leave you all of you with this thought.
Thank you so much, Disha. So, just a little bit of something from my end. For me, today's discussion showed that Capitalism is neither an unquestionable success nor an unquestionable failure. We saw that many of us credited capitalism with driving innovation, economic growth, and improvements in living standards, while we also criticized the same structure for inequality, environmental pressures, and uneven distribution of wealth and power. So, what becomes clear to me is that the debate is not only about capitalism itself, but also about how economic systems in general should evolve to balance efficiency, opportunity, sustainability, as well as social welfare. So, if we are going for a mixed economy, I think that the main question would be depending from country to country needs, how are we going to bring in both these approaches? For now, let's just say socialism as well as capitalism in proportions that make sense to the current set of problems that the country is facing. So that is a little bit of something as the concluding statement from my end. If anybody else has one, please go ahead. If not, we will be concluding the debate here.
Rose, can I ask one question?
Yes.
How many debates have you been a part of?
I have been a part of, I don't have the exact number, but more than 30 or 40, maybe 50.
I think so, because the way you try to find a middle ground, I believe that's the quality of a debater.
Oh my God, thank you. I've been mod for a long time, so I guess it's owed to that.
Wait,
Probably.
you've been present for like 40, 50 debates. That's incredible.
That's insane, yeah.
I mean, that's a very rough number. I haven't really kept track of everything.
Yeah, so seeing the course of how the debate club has gone on, do you think the debates are improving? Like since it restarted from the year one?
Yes, definitely. Because at first it was like any other debate club. Then we went to an open forum for discussion and debates. And then since we have restarted, I think personally, the quality of fact sheets and the quality of how we are actually coming together to discuss one single topic with so much nuance, I think there is a big improvement there. And I only hope that it will keep on improving further in the future.
And
Yeah.
I love the fact that this discussion turned out as a group discussion rather than a debate. So everybody was pointing out other models' flaws, but at the same time agreeing like what the benefits are.
Exactly. Personally, I think that's the point of a debate, formal or informal, to see if you can change somebody's perspective with the nuance and knowledge you have, and also be open to changing yours when it is appropriate. So I think that is what a fruitful debate ideally looks like to me.
Hey, one question. Over the course of the club's existence, did you guys ever try to say have some sort of forum or group chat where members could still connect or discuss the same
Are
topic
you not in
afterwards?
the WhatsApp group by any chance?
I'm in the WhatsApp group, but it seems sort of dead, and most of the channels are private. I can't quite message anything.
Okay, you can request to join all of the channels. I mean, there is one, if I'm not wrong, called Text Debate. I'm not sure how active it is at the moment, but it used to be very active when, we were before we restarted, that is.
Oh, um,
Um, yeah,
like
I think that group's been removed. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
actually,
called Vivada, the debate club. You could actually join there. For now, I
oh,
think,
yeah, here those groups used to be active. Now they have changed the group settings to like only the admins can send messages. Now no one
yeah.
is able to send a message.
hmm, let's see. If you guys would like, I can discuss internally and do something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
When
All
most of your
right
brains
then.
out of.
Let's formally end the debate for now. So it was really nice having you here, and I hope to see you next week. Bye bye, you guys.
Right.
Hi.
Thank you. Bye.
तो